We like to cover a lot of resource packs here, and if you want to upgrade mobs by adding some brand new variations to them, as well as new models, textures and animations, you're in the right place because we have another texture pack called Enhanced Mobs today that's going to show you a little few upgrades that improves the vanilla look. We're going to start with the ocean to show none other than the squid itself. Now personally I really like this change because it looks more realistic. I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a showcase in the water. You can see the eye is a lot different because it actually protrudes outside of the skull of the squid itself, and it's a proper 3D look because the eyes are now cubes that completely stick out of the model. There's also this small, well in fact it's not really small, it's giant, this big fin which sticks out the front too to give it a little bit more shape, because usually squids have more of a pyramid like arch at the front of the head instead of just a flat block like what we see in Minecraft as a game. So you can see they have been changed. I think the teeth underneath are the same, but we now have more realistic bulgy eyes which you'd expect, and more of a tail fin at the end, which kind of signifies a better head shape than we're usually used to. This is really nice and I think they look much better than they usually do, so I think this is a really cool upgrade. Now everyone's probably wondering, are the glow squids upgraded too? Well unfortunately not, but this is currently in the early days of the pack, so I'm sure they will probably upgrade these a little bit later. The pack is actually pretty fresh, so we expect that the pack will continue to receive updates as all goes on. Now I do kind of like this because it does actually show that the glow squids are a lot different to the normal squid now, and they could be different species because now they both have completely different shapes and appearances. Although I do hope that the glow squid will get changed too in the future, just so everything kind of makes sense and we have a little bit more repetitiveness, because it's a bit random to have both models completely different. And of course we do require Optifine for this, so you can see we do actually have mob variations now too. The pigs are actually in multiple different shades for the normal standard pigs, and we also have new black pig variants. This black pig's my favourite because it looks a lot different and it's nice and cool to have a few different colour shades. Now one thing that you'll notice though is these pigs now have flappy ears which kind of stick out the side of the head, which isn't usually what happens because usually that's just part of the texture. The ears are just kind of plastered on the cube for a little bit of detail, but it's not that great. But now that we have these flappy ears, it kind of adds a bit more shape to them. You can also see the actual textures for the feet look much better, and the pigs just look more realistic. Now, like I said before, there are actually two new shades. So there's a really bright salmon pink shade, and then there's a normal kind of pink pork flesh kind of shade, which we're used to. So there's now three different shades, two shades of pink and one shade of black. So when you have a farm and you have multiple pigs on them, they're all going to look just that little bit different. This is because it uses Optifine's mob variation feature, which allows for multiple textures for the same mob. So what's changed with foxes? Well, you can see they look basically the same, right? Well, it's kind of hard to see while they're running away, but the foxes do actually have much smaller ears now. The ear size has been reduced from the usual large appearance. Now, of course, if you would spawn a fox in a snow biome, it would obviously be a snow fox. Currently, we're not near a snow biome. And of course, if you spawn them on normal snow blocks, it doesn't really tend to work that way. But the Arctic foxes and the normal foxes now have much smaller ears than usual, which is kind of making for a much cuter look. Now my favourite feature of this pack currently is the changes to the wandering traders, but not actually the traders themselves, because they look kind of the same. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they haven't really received much of a change. But the big change actually comes to their companions. So wandering traders, when they spawn, they'll usually spawn with an alpaca, but now they'll actually spawn with trader camels, which look a lot cooler, especially if they spawn in the desert. Having camels just looks much better than the alpacas. We're already used to having normal llamas in the game, so there's no point to have a second variation with a wandering trader. We can still use the standard llamas by using the spawn eggs, but now we have this cool camel instead, which basically adds a brand new mob to the game. And like you saw in the inventory, it actually changes the name of the mob itself too, so it's kind of like a mod at this stage, but it's just a resource pack. So this is a really cool feature, and the camel looks pretty well detailed itself. It obviously walks very slow, but you can see it basically fits into the current art style of the actual game. So what's changed with creepers? Well, creepers are actually changed quite a bit. As you can see, they now actually fully camouflage into the shades of the grass themselves. So especially if it's dark at night time, you're not actually going to be able to see them coming very well. There's also changes with the back of the creeper itself. It's more slouched forwards and kind of, well, more creepy, which is pretty fitting for what the mob's actually called. So it's more creepy. We have more protruding ribs out of the actual torso or abdomen, and obviously the creeper still has the same style. It's just bent forwards camouflages more into the blocks, making it more dangerous, and it just looks generally more imposing and cooler. So let's cover one of the more newer mobs, which is the phantoms. Now the phantoms, in my opinion, look so much better than they usually do. Let's just set the time to nighttime and spawn some of these phantoms so they don't burn. And you can see phantoms, if I can kind of just fly and get a closer look, they're now more skeletal, okay? They're much thinner, they have these very bony 3-pronged wings, and the green eyes actually glow in the dark, which is part of Optifine's texture feature where you can have glow in the dark pieces or portions of the skin itself. You'll see this with a lot of different texture packs which add glow in the dark eyes like this. This makes them look a lot more terrifying when they spawn in the sky, and it encourages you to sleep a little bit more in game because you know that these guys are going to attack you. And obviously with phantom sounds being kind of freaky as it is, it only makes sense to make them more scary. These look like they come from a completely different dimension, and they definitely look like something out of your nightmares, which they should do, so I think this is a huge big upgrade. And the art style, although it doesn't really tend to fit in the game too well, I think it is a huge big upgrade in terms of the horror factor. So what about spiders? So let's just spawn a spider. Now I'm not sure if they've upgraded cave spiders as well, but we can always try that out. Cave spiders haven't been changed, just like glow squids haven't been changed, but the normal squids have. So only spiders have been currently reworked, but like with the glow squids, I think I can expect for these guys to upgrade a little bit more in the future. Now what I really like about these guys is the spiders now definitely appear much more realistic, and they look more like a tarantula. They have these giant mandibles at the front of the head, which look extremely freaky, and there's also prongs of hair on the back of its actual, I believe that's the abdomen. I get really confused with the parts of insects, but you can see it's a very hairy spider now, and it has these gigantic mandibles, and it looks definitely more creepy when it's crawling about. So anyone who has a spider phobia, I would definitely stay away from this pack, because it already makes the spider experience a lot more worse. I think they definitely look a lot more terrifying, and if it's nighttime and these guys are crawling after you, especially in a group of multiple of them, you're going to definitely want to run away the other direction. Another of my favorites are the slimes. They now actually have pieces inside of them, fully 3D parts inside, and from behind this is kind of confusing, but this is actually the slime's face. Okay, so the slime's face is usually just on the edge of the mob itself, but now the slime's mouth and eyes are kind of just inside of it, so it's kind of like jelly with pieces inside of it, which is a lot cooler. Now I'll just spawn quite a few of them, and you can see this also does have the mob variation effect too, because we actually have a lot more different shades of green for the slimes now. So they don't just have one flat color. We spawn them and they spawn in multiple sizes like they usually do, but they now have like 2 or 3 different green variants to them. They look a lot more cooler than they usually do, and I kind of like the effect where the face is just inside of the slime's jelly itself, because it's a completely different art style than what I've personally seen in other texture packs and resource packs. I'm not sure how they've done that from a texture standpoint. I think they've probably created a brand new model. You can see they look a lot more organic and just completely different to what we're used to. So anyone who's been watching for a while will know that skeletons are the bane of my existence. Okay, so let's just spawn some of them. Now, skeletons now have a few different variants to them too. You'll see that there's a few different skull variations of different shapes and different textures. They're cracked and crumble to a different degree depending on which you actually spawn, and they have arrows in their heads and a few of these other cool features. I'm not sure how the skeleton got an arrow in his head unless they've been fighting each other, but you'll also see some of them spawn, and I think all of them spawn with this arrow quiver on the back, which makes sense why they have infinite arrows, because before they were just kind of pulling them out of limbo and you had no clue where all these arrows were coming from that they were firing. So this is a pretty cool effect too. So we can see skeletons now are a lot cooler. The ribcage itself has a few more bones sticking out of it, and they've generally just improved the model to a higher degree. So I really like this. You can see a few of the different mouth shapes are a lot different too. So we're mainly looking at a few different skull variations and a few different changes to the base texture itself, which makes skeletons all the more terrifying and randomized if you have a giant army of them, which makes them kind of Game of Thrones style. So as you can see, zombies haven't been changed, which is one of the more basic mobs which you'd expect to have a complete switch up or change, which is unfortunate so far. But zombified piglins have changed slightly a little bit too. You can see now some of them have more classic look to them. If you're used to the original alpha gameplay of Minecraft with the original zombie pigmen, they had these very terrifying skull faces. So these piglins now appear like the original zombie pigmen from the alpha release of the game. But not just that, because some of the other Pigmen still look like the standard ones which we're used to. So there's a lot more variations to them now, which is really cool because each of them look unique and completely different to the other. And you can see some of them are completely skelefied too. So you can see that this zombie piglin is just a skeleton but with a pig skull, which is a really cool, interesting art style. And you can see the sword is held in the same position, which looks a little bit strange, but it's a really cool art choice, which I didn't expect. So you can see we now have completely different variations of Pigmen, which makes them a little bit more exciting when we go to the Nether, because as you know, they spawn in absolutely gigantic groups, and when they all look the same, it looks a little bit uninteresting. But now this spices up the Nether a little bit to make it a little bit more rewarding to explore. And so far, I believe that is the complete collection of the modified mobs currently inside the Shrimpsnail's Enhanced Mobs resource pack. As usual, I'm going to put the link down below so you guys can try this, but one little footnote is you are going to need Optifine to actually get this to work, so make sure you do download that. If you want to run mods alongside Optifine, you can download OptiFabric, so you can run fabric mods, which is currently what I'm doing too, to achieve a much more extensive modded experience, which is a lot cooler when you can run mods alongside Optifine, because you can enhance the frame rate of your game, run these awesome resource packs, and generally have much better experience. I'd recommend really trying this, but do go into it with the mindset that this is still early days, so not all of the mobs have yet been upgraded, but showing the artist some support will encourage him to continue to update this awesome pack. I will continue to show you some awesome resource packs as the weeks go on, as I discover them, because I've been discovering some really awesome unique resource packs recently, which is why I've been covering them alongside mods on the channel too. So if you like this, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more Minecraft mods and resource packs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
I be the show, make a room, shaking it down. I be the with a high profile, everybody come on. We be the shakers with a crazy style, showing everybody how to enjoy a crazy wild. One time rocking to the sound, chilling women everywhere. I be the big down, swing at a hospital, super chick.
Baby, come on, you better rock with me. I be the hot shot player from nowhere to my